Okay, welcome to First Universalist out of New Madison on this pretty much typical winter day. Really atypical as far as what's going on in the world. We tried to do last week, we tried to do something that was totally religious, totally Christian, and that didn't work out too well because I couldn't get the computer to coordinate with me. But today, this whole week, the news has been the same thing, so I apologize for Chicken Little, the sky is falling, but the sky is still raining down. So that's what we're going to talk about again today. Try and keep people apprised of the way things are going and the idea that we're not totally helpless here. There's other stuff that we can do, and there's stuff that we need to be pay attention to that we can do. All right, any announcements?
We heard from our El Dorado congregation friends actually 2 weeks ago, and they were inquiring whether we wanted to continue the tradition of a union service.
Yes.
And that would be scheduled for Palm Sunday. So I asked you to think about that after service today, give me your input. I know we're a small group, but whether we continue that tradition, and we told Derek that or at least I said in my message that we would get back with him, and I want to very shortly so that they can plan accordingly.
Yeah, I replied to him and my group that I'm in favor of continuing it, along with the carry-in. I'm not sure whether he didn't really specify, is it our turn or their turn?
It's our turn.
It's our turn.
Our turn. Yeah, we were there shortly before or after Thanksgiving, I think. And so it would be our turn to host this.
And it's in April we're talking about?
Well, it'd be Palm Sunday, and I think that's early April, if I understand correctly. I'll look it up.
Because it'd be nice to have it down at the shelter again if it's warm enough.
Yeah.
If not, we can have it upstairs here. We can't do it in the basement. So.
We can have it upstairs. We've had it in previous years. It's just a matter of can we produce the amount of food we need. So we'll chat about it.
Yeah, and I think the attendance is dwindling pretty much on a regular basis.
On both sides.
On both sides. So I think we can all get around one table, so I don't think there'd be any problem, even if we have to go to the deli to get what we need to supply.
I saw online that Gil and Siler passed away.
Yes, I saw that as well.
Yeah, we announced that last week. Yep.
Yeah.
But the service was already over by the time we had heard about it. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any other announcements? Can't think of anything right now. All right. Our prelude. God bless the child. Not the rockin' version. The regular, the spiritual version. God bless the child, and we fervently pray for that in the coming times that will be necessary, not only here in this country, but around the world. We talked a little bit about, last week we did Tara's sermon, which I really enjoy her sermons, but I couldn't get the computer to work for me very well, so we're back again trying today. This introductory picture is pretty much what we see going on. The topic today was going to be, I was going to recapitulate Hitler's march to power from 1932 to 1945. I think we're kind of past that now. I'm going to make oblique references to it, but that's not going to be the main concentration. We're going to look just today at what is actually going on in this country, and that stands on its own 2 legs, or 4 legs if you prefer. The one thing I apologize for, this is the last Sunday in February, and we have totally skipped over Black History Month. I had intended to do something with that, but just like the national attention has changed and basically is trying to wipe out any attention for Black history, we've missed it too, so we may add a little bit to it later. So that is our reminder, Black History Month. This is something we need to pay attention to, and we will as we go along. Our chalice lighting, we gather today with sacred intentions to declare that justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that it is possible, not here, not quite yet. The seeds have been planted time and again, and we remember all those who went before us who made beloved community a dream that could be realized. Justice is our prayer. May our time of worship together continue to water the budding trees of our diverse interdependence. May our time of worship give air and nourishment to the parts of our collective spirits that need to grow and thrive, that embrace equity as a known way of being. Justice is our prayer. We affirm in covenant with the beloved community that is possible. May it be so. Let us worship together. This is another presentation by Rebecca Savage, who is fast becoming one of my favorite writers. Our opening hymn is 116. I'm on my way.
3 verses.
3 verses. Yeah, there's like 5 altogether. We're not doing that many. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. If I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. If you could ever hear a black choir sing this, it will rock your world.
Yeah.
We may have to pull some up on the internet sometime if I can do that, because I don't think we can get a black choir to come up here. We might be, I'll have to check. All right, our affirmation, Beatitudes for the neurodivergent. The reason I'm picking neurodivergent is this guy, I think, qualifies for neurodivergent. So we are saying a prayer for him. Blessed are the unfocused, for they notice the sparks of divinity that illumine the world. Blessed are those who mourn their failures, for God will exalt their unseen successes. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for novelty, for they seek the marvels of God's handiwork and will be satisfied. Blessed are the forgetful, for God will forget their transgressions and remember their mercy. Blessed are the idle, for they have befriended God. Blessed are the blunt, for they will be called God's messengers. Blessed are those who sow chaos for righteousness' sake, for they will reap justice. Blessed are the risk takers, for the paths they forge will lead to the kingdom of heaven. There are some good points there and some excuses there for the neurodivergent, but we all deal with those every day. All right, our children's story is, got two.
Are you not going to comply with it? Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. Every state, good, I'll see you good. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be elected politics.
Does anybody know where this is from? The National Governors Conference. And that was the governor of Maine. Let's see, Janet Hill, I think. I had it somewhere. A Democratic governor of Maine. Thank you. Who, when Trump said this is the federal law we've passed, an executive order, it's not a law that was passed. The Congress didn't say anything about it. He just said, you will, if you have any women or trans people on the opposite team, you will not get any federal support. And the governor of Maine, and he said, is everybody complying with that? And she said, no, in Maine, we follow state and federal law. And it still is the federal law. It hasn't been changed by Congress. So Trump basically reverts automatically to bully mode and says you're not going to get any federal funding, not just for that, for anything else that the federal government gives Maine to. And she said, we'll see you in court. And of course he says, yeah, we'll win in a minute, in a heartbeat. And then he has to gratuitously insult her at the end and say, you might as well give up on any future political career because I'll make sure you have no career after this. That's pretty much up to the people of Maine, and we'll see what happens.
Tim, might I add something to that? Not only did he threaten to withhold funds, but he also took the very department that he wants to eliminate, the Department of Education, and he designated their Office of Civil Rights to investigate the entire 3 different school districts within the state of Maine. And I speak from experience, those investigations are very time-consuming. They are well-intentioned, but they are also very bothersome, and they will go on for a year or 2 years. So that was his vindictive nature of using a department that he's wanting to eliminate to get back at a state government.
And it's not just a state government. We're kind of going into the presentation anyway. But if you remember what he's saying about Ukraine, that he's calling Zelensky a dictator, and saying that they invaded Russia. I mean, how can you even countenance? How can you look at this? How can you listen to this? And how can his supporters listen to it and say he's taking Putin's side on everything? On the negotiations for Ukraine, he said he was going to end the war immediately, the first day he was there. So he said, number one, Ukraine is the aggressor, Putin was not, and Ukraine is attacking Russia, and Ukraine is not going to get any land back. When you negotiate, you don't give away all the negotiating points before you even start the negotiation. You may have seen, there's been reports that Trump in 1987 visited Russia and was compromised. A KBG agent who has defected to the United States said he was compromised at that time and turned into a Russian mole. And everything that you watch, he came back in 1987 and spent $130,000 on full-page ads saying that Russia was right and Ukraine was wrong, with the first time Russia invaded Ukraine and took Crimea away from them. So everything he's done ever since then has been pro-Russian. The people he's appointed have all been pro-Russian. To every office, every cabinet office, every office down the line have all taken the Russian speaking points. It is almost inconceivable that the United States, whose mortal enemy has been Russia since the end of World War II, has put in a person who is basically taking Russia's side in everything and giving everything away to Russia. It is just inconceivable. All right, I have another one. This is the thing, something that the White House, this came out of the White House, was released by the White House. Has anybody seen this?
This is deportation.
This is deportation, and these are not criminals, these are just people who are illegally in the United States. And this blurb was released by the White House. Basically, they said to intimidate and frighten and have these people self-deport, and also it was played at the CPAC conference where Trump spoke and got cheers. And I go back to, this is exactly the kind of thing that the Nazis in Germany in 1938 and 39, they used 16 millimeter film, but they used to show films of the Jews being loaded onto cattle cars on trains, and people would cheer and say what a great thing it is to get rid of these foreign invaders and these bloodsuckers on our body politic. The same thing is going on. Let me give you, does anybody know the difference between Mein Kampf and Project 2025?
What was the first one?
Mein Kampf, Hitler's autobiography, and the Project 2025, which is basically Trump's autobiography. The guy who wrote
80
that.
years.
The only difference is one's in German and one's in English. That is the difference. And I have a thing here. We can go down the list. I don't have to do it now, but you can find the list if you want of any Project 2025. And no-fault divorce, that's in progress. A complete ban on abortions without exceptions. That is even in Ohio. That is in progress. In the state of Missouri, they are passing a law that every woman who gets pregnant, has a pregnancy test at a doctor's office, will be put on a registry to see what the result is of that pregnancy. Was it a live birth? Was it an abortion? Was it done by a miscarriage? And every one will be tracked. Every birth in the state of Missouri, according to this law. And this law, as you know, once the ALEC, the people who spread these around, once one state does it, all the red states are going to do it. Are going to track pregnancies. Every woman who is pregnant is going to be tracked. Ban contraceptives. It seems like an unbelievable thing. But they are talking about if the amendment passes that they want to pass, that life begins at conception. That means when the egg is fertilized, then you can no longer use any abortifactants. The pill basically does not let a fertilized egg implant into the lining of the uterus, so that would be an abortifactant, and the pill would be banned. This population are the people of the United States going to put up with this? Tax breaks for corporations and the 1%, we already know that's going on. and that means higher taxes for the working class, elimination of unions and worker protections. That's obvious. They've already started to attack unions in every place. They've passed, the person who is the head of the Department of Labor, who's supposed to be the person who is head of the National Reconciliation, the union board, has already said right to work laws are more than fine and we're going to support those everywhere. The right to work law says that anybody can unionize, but nobody can be forced to join the union. So you can go to a company, go to work, the union bargains for good wages. You don't have to pay your union dues and you still get the good wages. So most people are going to say, I'm not going to be in the union for a while anyway. When they ended up getting smashed and squashed, they may decide to go to a union. Some states are now, the state of Utah, we talked about this last week, has outlawed public bargaining. No public unions, police, fire, or teachers can bargain with can bargain with their employer. So teachers can't bargain with the school board. What's the point of having a union if you can't bargain for wages? How can they outlaw that? It's just inconceivable. Raising retirement age, we know that's going to happen anyway. Cut Social Security, cut Medicare. They didn't have in there, but it's going to happen. Cut Medicaid, and that's one of the big things we're talking about. And the Affordable Care Act, they're still trying to do that. They've already raised prescription prices. For insulin was brought down to $35 a month top. That's gone. It can be whatever the company wants to charge.
Oh my God.
Eliminate Department of Education, that's in works. Public taxpayer money for private religious schools. Did anybody see the definition of how that works? I'm not sure if it works like that in Ohio, but this was one in Texas they were talking about. There's a $10,000 voucher. The guy said in 3/4 of the counties in Texas, there are no private schools, so the voucher doesn't do you any good. For the schools that are there, the tuition for 1 year is $20,000. So a $10,000 voucher will not get a poor family into a private school. So what he said is, this is welfare for the rich. The rich who are already sending their kids to a private school and paying $10,000 or $20,000 are going to get a $10,000 coupon by the people in Texas are going to subsidize their kid going to a private school. This is the wealthy taking over our government and giving themselves handouts from one to another. Elon Musk, we've gone through that multiple times. He is eliminating, one of his Tesla cars, one of his primary things is to create an auto self-driving car. He's just closed down or trying to close down the Federal Highway Safety Admission, the commission that covers safety. They are the ones who control self-driving cars. They control the rules on self-driving cars. If that commission is eliminated, there's no one to stop him from doing whatever he wants. SpaceX, his space thing, he's cutting down the FAA, he's cutting down NASA, the people who control everything that needs to be done. These people are lining their own pockets. It's just unbelievable. And then here's the bottom that goes down. Deregulate big business and big oil. The guy who is in charge of the EPA is the guy from an oil company. And he's already said he's pushing more. End marriage equality. It just goes on and on. Condemn single mothers, promoting only traditional families. Defund the FBI, the Kash Patel, the guy who was put into the FBI. Do you know his back history? He wrote a children's book about how the king was being in trouble. Who was the king? Trump was the king in his book. And the person who defended him was Kash Patel. That was his advertisement, his attempt to brown nose his way into a job. He also said when he gets into the FBI, he's closing down the Hoover building, which was the FBI headquarters. He said all those people will be eliminated. That he's already been put in, and that's already happening. It's just unbelievable. You may see this picture in the news. That was put out by the White House. Trump actually called himself the king.
Yeah.
He called himself the king. I mean, we're progressing down this path at a breakneck speed, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. Just one more for fun. Let me recognize what this is.
Daytona 500.
He went to the Daytona 500 and took the Beast, which is what they call the presidential limousine, and put it on the track and drove it around the track. Do you know how much all that stuff cost? When they're talking about saving money for the American taxpayer and cutting out federal workers right and left, it cost almost $9 million by the time he flew to Florida, then flew back to Daytona, took the Beast, and he only stayed for like 25 minutes, and then he left. And it was all to gratify his ego. And the people that are following him just lap that up. I don't understand it at all. And that's why I put this picture in. This is Adolf Hitler in 1933. He became chancellor. And where's my figures here? And they had, the figures are pretty scary. Get the papers in here. He had only like 27 or 37% of the percentage of the voting people in the German parliament. And he said, if I can find it, 1, 2, 3. Well, let me go through it. He said that he had a majority because of they had like 51 or 52% of the German parliament. That was with his coalition, kind of like the Israeli coalition. But he had 37% of that coalition. So his interpretation to the public was he had 75% of the population of Germany because he had 75% of his coalition. Not 75% of the whole parliament, but 75% of his coalition. So, and that's what he said justified him to take over the government, and that is what he did. He eliminated all the judicial offices. He packed them with his own people. He took over the police forces. He took over the internal and external security. He took over all the military and the bureaucracies. Exactly the same blueprint, which is what is going on now. Federal workers are being fired right and left. Bird flu in Ohio, almost 13 million birds in Ohio. Chickens have been slaughtered in Ohio because of bird flu. The people that watch bird flu for the agriculture department and the EPA, they're being fired right and left. They fired all the people that watch the nuclear weapons, that keep track of them and make sure they're in working condition. Then they realized their mistake and tried to hire them back. This is like, it's unbelievable the stuff that is going on. It's like the country is being torn down around us while we're watching, and nobody is doing anything about it. And what can anybody do? All right. I told you I lived in Berlin for 1.5 years and went to the concentration camp, the very first concentration camp where the very first people went, was Sachsenhausen. The first thing they did at Sachsenhausen, and I didn't write it, they set up the first execution chambers, and the first one, during the early stages of the camp's existence, the executions were done by placing prisoners in a small room, often even with music playing, called Genickschussbaracke. English means shot in the neck barracks. Shot in the neck barracks. They were told they were to have their height and weight measured, and they were lined up against the wall, and then they were shot in the back of the neck through a sliding door behind them in the wall. The sliding door would open and they would be shot in the neck. But this was found to be way too much time consuming, so they trialed a trench, killing either by shooting or hanging. This is the trench that still exists. They would line the prisoners up along the wall, and the guards would stand up on top and shoot and fill the trench up, and then they would have other prisoners come and carry the bodies away. This was the first example. The second example. The first one was shoot them in the neck. The second one was dig a trench and put them in it. And the third one was the gas chambers and the crematoriums. That is the one thing about the Germans. They document. They're really good at documenting everything. Let's see. The small-scale trials of what would go on to become the large-scale, the death camp gas chambers, were designed and carried out. These started at Sachsenhausen. When the Soviets took over, they tore it down. So when you go to the camp now, it's basically a field, but all along the field there are rectangles marked out, and that's where the barracks were. There's one barracks still left as an example, and there are jail cells still there with the prisoners' names on the jail cells. Reinhold Niebuhr, theologian, was in one of those cells and executed there. And they are basically, I'm sure you've seen pictures of the concentration camps, they're basically racks with 10 to 15 people in each little section of the rack, 2 stories and sometimes 3 stories high, a line of latrines, a line of toilets along the latrine, and a one long shelf, one long sink down the middle to wash your hands in. They were covered with lice. They were fed poorly. They were worked to death. Most of the German industry used slave labor. That's what they were used for. And when they came to the concentration camp, they were separated into those who could work, and their lives were prolonged a little bit, versus those who were considered not essential, and they were sent directly to the gas chamber. They got off the train, they walked to the gas chamber, they went in, they were told they were being deloused, took all their clothes off and sent into a room that was supposed to be a shower room, and Cyclone B, which is a industrial pesticide, was dropped through the top. And then the workers who were saved as workers, they were actually Jews. They were called kapos. They came in and took the bodies out and loaded them in a gurney and took them to the crematorium. And what did they do first? They pulled their gold teeth, immense amounts of gold. In the old days, that's what people used to do when you had a cavity. You didn't have silver fillers and amalgams. They used gold for cavities. They pulled all these gold teeth and melted it down and saved for the German Republic, or the German country. The gold was saved. And you've probably seen pictures of the shoes, the glasses. Everything was saved and recycled. Famous German ascension. Okay, let's see. And they also had the first things they did on the Eastern Front, when they found out the gas chambers worked, they had vans that were portable gas chambers. They would go to villages with people they wanted to execute, and they would put them in like 20 or 30 in the back of the van, gas them, take them out and dump them, and put another 20 or 30 in. Just, it's truly amazing. Okay, Governor Mills, that was her idea. Her statement was the following statement: Department of Education notifying Maine that they had us directed to initiate an investigation into the state of Maine over alleged Title IX violations. This is her statement: I have spent my career as a district attorney, and attorney general, and now as governor, standing up for the rule of law in Maine and America. To me, that is fundamentally what is at stake, is the rule of law in our country. No president, Republican or Democrat, can withhold federal funding authorized and appropriated by Congress and paid for by Maine taxpayers in an attempt to coerce someone into compliance with his will. It is a violation of our Constitution and our laws, which I told an oath to uphold. Maine may be one of the first states to undergo an investigation by this administration, but we won't be the last. Today, the President of the United States has targeted one particular group on one particular issue which Maine law has addressed. But you must ask yourself, who and what will he target next? And what will he do? Will it be you? Will it be because of your race or your religion? Will it because you look different or think differently? Where does it end? In America, the president is neither king nor dictator, as much as this one tries to act like it, and it is a rule of law that prevents him from doing so. So we will see whether the rule of law prevails. So far, it has not. Did you hear about the Friday night massacre? Joint Chiefs of Staff have changed. The Joint Chiefs of Staff was relieved of duty, and the head of the naval arm of the military was relieved of duty. Did anybody see a picture of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Everybody is a white male except for 2. Want to guess who those 2 are? The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a black man, and the chairman or the leader of the Navy Department, Secretary of the Navy, is a white woman. So there are nothing but white men in the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Does anybody know who was appointed as the new leader of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? It's a guy named Raisin Cain, James Cain, and they call him Raisin. I guess it's for a nickname. They think it's funny. He first met Trump in Iraq, and I don't know if I have a quote here somewhere. He said, "I love you, I will do anything for you, I would kill for you." This is literally what he said, I would kill for you. This is the guy who basically was a retired brigadier general in the Reserve Air Force. He was they said he was a fighter pilot and flew like 100 missions. That is nothing for a fighter pilot to fly for 100 missions, but he made it to Reserve Brigadier General in the Reserve Army, Reserve Air Force. So that's the guy who is now in charge of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is part of Hitler's plan. You put in people, and this was Trump's complaint on the first thing, because General Miley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, we're not doing that, and we're not doing this, and this is what you have to do, this is what the law says. Now he has put people in just like Hitler, and he said, I want generals like Hitler had. Trump said this, and now he has generals like Hitler had. So will these generals have U.S. troops firing on American protesters? The probability is very high. We will have to see what happens, but that is going down the line from one end to the other. They start at the top and decapitate all of these areas, and then they put in their cronies and their fellow travelers, and then it works its way down the line until the entire force is filled with people who only follow orders, which is the famous German response. I was only following orders. Okay, I've got more stuff here, but I don't think we really need it. So, anybody have any comments, questions, opinions? Anybody have any suggestions of what you want to hear about in the future? Or a speaker that you want to hear from? Be more than happy to pass that along. All right. Joys and concerns. Ukraine, they are being hung out to dry. Did you hear what Trump offered Ukraine to defend them? He said, if you will give us 50% of the income of the whole country of Ukraine for in perpetuity, for as long as the country exists. That means Ukraine has deposits of lithium, which is useful in batteries. It has coal, it has iron ore, it has a tremendous grain harvest. He wants 50% of everything the country produces, 50% of the profits from the lithium, 50% of the profits from grain, 50% of the profits from coal. He basically wants to take, and this, if the Ukrainians, which I don't know how much choice they have, I mean, I don't know if Europe is going to be able to defend Ukraine without the United States. But anyway, this is what he told Russia, that he wants to have a deal with them and would give Russia Ukraine. But then he's playing, it's just like the mafia. I'm giving you an offer you can't refuse. So he's playing them both off against each other to see which one will give him more benefits, him personally. And it does benefit him personally. Everything he does is set up. You're about the combination of the golf, the American Golf Association. What's that called? PGA. Yeah. And Leave, the one the Saudi Arabians he is brokering the combination of those two because they've been at odds with each other and fighting. He's brokering that because he wants them to have their golf meets, their golf programs at his golf clubs. So he is telling the American Golf Association and the Saudis to get together so it will make money for his golf courses. Everything he does was with a profit motive, and it's for his personal profit. It's just unbelievable. Okay, so we have Ukraine, Israel. Anybody been keeping up on what's going on in Israel?
Please light another candle for Israel because of probably one of the most poignant moments. It should have captured the world's attention. Two infant sons, basically, little boy, toddler, his brother, and mother, eventually, were all brought back in coffins to their home. If nothing illustrates terrorism, war, it's that particular incident in my mind that I can only shake my head. And I don't think there's enough empathy that can pour from all the people in America to basically address that.
And the two little boys were brought back. One was like 9 months and one was a couple years old. Their mother was supposedly brought back, but it was the wrong body. So the Israelis lodged a protest on that. And then when they finally did get the right body, the Hamas said the bodies, these three were killed by an Israeli air raid that killed them. And Israel says the two babies were killed, they were strangled and killed by hand. The trouble is, who do you believe? Because both sides, neither side has a real track record of telling the truth. And that is part of the problems in war, is the innocent civilians are the ones that suffer, and they are being used as bargaining points, as public relations points by both sides. Each side will turn it in whatever way they want that gives them the advantage. That is the same thing we're seeing in public discourse in this country. The Haitian immigrants are eating dogs and cats in Springfield. Haven't heard anything about that. And all of these.
Springfield has been prioritized for cleaning up the immigrants.
What's that?
Springfield has been prioritized by the Department of Homeland Security for cleaning up and ridding that city of its immigrants.
And I'm not sure, I've not heard the update. A couple of weeks ago, there were news reports that the immigrants were already leaving for larger cities where they could hide because they knew they had a target on their back. And that's, it just goes on and on and on. They were supposed to prioritize criminals, and they were the ones who were supposed to be taken first and deported, and everybody said, yeah, we were in support of that. It turns out 50 to 60 to 70% are just basically immigrants, the undocumented, who were rounded up in the sweep, and they're being sent to Guantanamo. It's not just criminals being sent to Guantanamo, it's any immigrant they find is being sent down there. The ones that are being sent overseas are being sent in chains, as you see in the little documentary, and they are really, that really kind of gets the base fired up, which that is the basic question that we're facing is, everybody has thought the United States is filled with honest and decent, regular people, and if we are still, we as a majority, 51% or 48% or 49%, if we are still supporting that, what does that say about us as a country? What does that say about us as a population? It is really, it strikes deep into what the faith in democracy is. It really does. I used to think that the Germans, well, that they were, a lot of them were ignorant, but I think they were intentionally ignorant, and I think the same thing is going on here. And when they said never again, I think they made a mistake. I think it very easily could happen again. I've got another quote, I won't bring it today, but I may bring it next week. It's a German immigrant, not immigrant, but a third generation German. Her father worked for the Gestapo, or worked for the German army during World War II, and continually said he did not know what was going on. But she said, I saw the same thing happening here as what he described as what happened in Germany. People pretended they didn't know what was going on because they would get in trouble if they did. The majority of the people were saying that it was the right thing to do, or if they didn't, and the same thing is now, you'll hear Republican legislators say, we have to vote this way, we're being threatened, physically threatened with physical harm if we don't vote this way. Everything is going down the same path. All right. Any other candles? Okay. I'm sure there are things going on closer to us around here, but people are still in ignorance. Oh, I guess we need to say, you need to start wearing your masks in public again. The COVID is increasing, but the regular, just typical winter flu is now killing more people than COVID is. And I'm not sure whether that's because the COVID deaths are going down or the flu deaths are going up. From what I can gather from the news, the flu deaths are actually going up everywhere. And the other thing, I guess we need to light a candle for Texas. Anybody know how many measles cases there are in Texas now? 90. 90 is the last count of measles, mostly unvaccinated people. Who is the head of our human health and services? A guy who does not believe in vaccines. What did he say during his hearings when he was questioned by the Republican senators? Oh, we're not going to have any problem with that. I will support the vaccines that are already there. What happens when he gets in office? He's already reneged on that. There are already questions about the vaccines, the companies that produce them being financed. There's already questions about the amount of money the government is spending. They've cut the financing for all kinds of scientific studies. They have cut, and this is the most important part, I guess I would say, They've cut out all the websites that accumulate the information so people know what's going on. They are now trying to be in total control of the media. And you might have noticed when they changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, one particular AP did not change because AP supplies a nomenclature, a list of legal names for the entire world, not just the United States. And what happened? They were pushed out. They were not allowed to be in any White House briefings. They were not allowed to be on Air Force One for briefings. They're being punished because they didn't follow the King's directive. And so far, they are still refusing to do that. Washington Post, we know what happened when Bezos contributed tons of money. He's the owner of the Washington Post to Trump's inauguration thing. A group of conservative Republicans put in an ad that said, who's the president of the country? Is it Trump or is it the chairman of the car company? The Washington Post refused to run that ad. It had been paid for and set up to run, and it was canceled before it could run. They are now complicit in the takeover of the United States media. They will do anything that they were told to do. That is the danger, and that is the same thing that happened in Germany. You take over the media, you take over the outlet, you take over the judges. There's no possibility of saying anything different. So, all right, it's just, the news is just totally frightening. All right, one last candle for those thoughts and prayers, particularly those individual people that we're not seeing. We haven't seen Margaret for a while. Hopefully she's doing all right. And hopefully everybody else that we're not seeing is doing okay. All right, if you have anything to share, please do. If you need something, let us know. And we're going to hear, where's my paper? 208. Every time I feel closing hymn is 168. One more step. until there is peace for us and everyone, we will take one more step. That is what Janet Hill, governor of Maine, is taking a step for all of us, and she recognizes that and said that. We will see if the people of Maine will follow her. If you remember, the governor that preceded her was a right-wing MAGA person who was totally down on transgender and everybody else. So the people of Maine have had a change of heart. We will see if that stays true. We'll also see if it stays true. If you've noticed, there have been all kinds of, every time there's a public meeting where the red state conservative politicians show up, they're being harangued and yelled at and everything else about people wanting to know what's going on. People are finding out that Medicaid is going to be cut, their Social Security is going to be cut. Everything that they do, just how many planes have crashed since Trump took office?
Yeah.
5 plane crashes. What was the first thing he did? Lay off huge numbers of FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration.
Yeah.
They are still laying off traffic controllers, and there's a tremendous shortage of traffic controllers. But any traffic controller who doesn't have an unblemished record of support for the government, they are rooting out everybody who is what they call the deep state.
6,000 IRS workers.
IRS workers.
And during tax season.
During tax season. It's just, this is insane. It's totally insane. The government is being torn down around us, and I can't help but feel, and that is I guess my feeling for optimism, is even the people who voted for this didn't vote, well, they did vote for it, but I don't think they knew what they were voting for. And when their Medicaid is cut, when their Social Security check doesn't show up, he took DeJoy, the guy who was a right-wing guy at the head of the post office, he's been fired. Now Trump is talking about taking over the post office as his personal, as the government's in control. The post office has been independent for 250 years. It predates the United States of America. Benjamin Franklin started the post office before there was a country, before the Declaration of Independence had been stated. He's talking about taking it out of the independent hands and making it an arm of the government, which means they will be in control, which means no unions, et cetera, et cetera. You already know all that. And this is a guy, these people voted for this guy because he was supposed to be a businessman who would run things like a business. How's he run his businesses? Does anybody want to see a list of all the businesses that he started that have gone bankrupt?
Yeah.
Every one of them. He doesn't have, the only business that succeeds is his name on something.
Yeah.
If he had, in Panama, he had the control of the hotels and they were all going bankrupt and the government had to take over the hotels. That's why he's mad at Panama. It's just, it's unbelievable. Okay. Keep the chalice flame burning. Be kind, be brave, be just, be merciful, be hopeful. This is how we keep the chalice flame burning until we are together again to light it anew. And I just had to throw this in. Does anybody get the reference here?
He was a populist president.
Yes, Andrew Jackson, who is cited by our Vice President Vance as one of his heroes. And this is the thing on the other side, if you can see, that is the Trail of Tears. Cherokee, Choctaw, Muskogee, Seminole, all the Indians from Georgia, they discovered, in 1830, they discovered gold in Georgia. It must not have been too much, but they discovered enough that people wanted to flood in there and take the Indian lands. So Andrew Jackson said, we will send the Indians to Oklahoma and give them their own land out there. The Indians didn't want to go. And the Indians, the Muskogee and the Choctaw, these were intelligent Indians who wore Western clothes, who lived in Western-type houses. And the only thing they did was they were basically Indians. They'd been here before, and they had red skin. So they actually went to the Supreme Court and won their case. The Supreme Court said that you cannot remove the Indians without compensating them for their land. What did Andrew Jackson said? Andrew Jackson said, the court has made its decision, now let them enforce it. And he sent the Indians on the Trail of Tears. 16,000 were sent, 4,000 died on the way. And Georgia was given to the white settlers. This has happened over and over and over again. And this was what Vance is reporting. When the court says you can't do this, Vance says to the court, now you made the ruling, let's see you make us do it. If we control the military and the police forces, how are you going to enforce anything? That is the question we are facing. The same thing from Germany. So that's my horse picture.
Oh, there was a horse there.
There was a horse there, but this is the horseman. This is the Indians after the trail. This is just an artist's depiction. And I guess I got to throw one more in just for the heck of it. Then we can see what this is. This is a Banksy thing that he puts up on the walls. This is a little girl doing CPR on what? It's a dove.
Dove.
If you can see the dove of peace is being given CPR by a little girl. So, all right, there's coffee and there's donuts. That will be the end of our service. We have postlude is $1.99. Precious Lord, take my hand. Boy, don't we need that.
Yeah.
Okay, as usual, we will leave our one candle lit for Margaret, for Cecil, for Dolly. Hopefully everybody's in good health. I'm going to call Cecil and see how she's doing when we get done. Have a good week. Keep the faith. There are things that we can do. Do not despair. That is part of their plan, is shock and awe. It's the same thing that Bush did to Iraq. When you hit them with everything you have, and every week there's a new trauma that comes on, and people finally, they just kind of lose control and cower in their corner like little bunny rabbits. We are not going to do that. So, all right, see you next week, hopefully.
Hey, where do your girls live now? Where do your girls live? Okay. I kind of lost track of it. Yeah. Still around here. Okay.
What's this going back here? Did it get wet?
What's that?
What's this going back here? Did it get wet?
What's what?
The chairs and the picture frame.
That's what, when you weren't here, I put I printed off a bunch of.
Oh, okay, just for, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought maybe there was a leak somewhere and
No.
it was drying out.
No,
Okay.
they were put there so when people came in, if they came in late, they could pick up a program.
I'll come up with something that we can get for that.
Well, when you're here,
That's good news.
yeah, when you're here, we don't have to do it, but when you're not here,
No problem.
That's what we
No
do.
problem. No, I just thought, well, what that is.
no, that was a last minute thing. I was looking for a little table and didn't find one, so that's what
You were improvised.
I improvised. Yeah, I'm a pretty good at improvising.
Oh.